Former freelancer, successful agency owner, now author. Uh, thank you so much for joining us here today. You want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Thank you very much for inviting me. Pleasure to be here. Yeah, my name is Andy Strote. As you mentioned, I was a former freelancer. I started as an agency copywriter, then went freelance for 6, 7 years, then started my first agency, which was acquired by a big IT company after 5 years. Started my second agency, worked there for quite a while, and retired from there. So now I do work for a couple of clients, and I've written a book, and then other than that, we travel.
Yeah, checking out lots of Europe these days. Very exciting. A life well lived, selling a company, writing books, getting a little residual income while you're traveling the world, living the dream, right?
Something like that, yeah.
Great. So, how did you manage the pressure of running a business and like needing sales? Because, like we're talking all about client acquisition. So, how did you manage that pressure of running the business and, paying for all of your overhead? Like, did that help with the pressure to increase your rates and go after larger accounts?
Well, when I started my first agency, I started with big corporate clients for my freelance business. So coming out of the agency world as a copywriter, you get used to working with big corporate clients with 6-figure, 7-figure budgets. And you sort of understand how they work and what they're looking for and what's important to them and so on. And so when I started freelancing, I had some of those clients as freelance clients just doing the writing. I transitioned from being a freelancer to starting an agency because frankly, I was so busy. I couldn't take on any more work, but also I was giving away a lot of design work. Um, and rather than, have commissions and get somebody to pay you 10% of the job or whatever you want, I would just find people that I thought were good that I could work with for the client. And then I thought, wait a minute, some of those design jobs are way bigger than my writing job, right? So I'm giving away $30,000, $40,000 jobs. And I didn't ask for anything for it and consequently got nothing for it. So I thought, I'll do something bigger. And I just thought I would start an agency. And really, there wasn't too much more thought than that. And my thinking was I'll bring my freelance clients into my agency. But to start an agency, I wanted a partner, so a designer. Um, when I worked in agencies, I also had a design partner, art director, right? And we worked as a team. And so I got used to working in a team kind of environment like that. And I was comfortable with that. So I looked for a partner who also had clients to bring to it. So I wanted the design version of me. I wanted, two of us to come together, form an agency. We would each bring our clients into it, and away we go. And that's what I did. I
Awesome.
put out an ad. I had 30 people respond.
Wow.
I met with 5 of them, and eventually I chose one. And it was a designer who had moved to Canada from the UK, but he'd been in Canada long enough to build up a freelance business here. He had had an agency in the UK, which he kind of left to his partner to deal with. He wanted to come to Canada because he's also a photographer and he liked photographing up in the Rocky Mountains and stuff. So he was always traveling to shoot. But we started this agency together. We threw our clients together, and it just grew. Within months, we hired another designer, and also a designer who could build websites. We were starting to build websites. Um, Within a few more months after that, we hired our second person, who was a project manager, basically, and sort of ran the office. So um, she kept us all sane and took care of a whole lot of admin that we were otherwise doing ourselves. Um, yeah. Anyways, we grew the agency from 2 of us to 28 people when it was acquired after five
Wow.
years. Yeah.
That's cool. So how did you get some of those big clients? You said you had these larger accounts for yourself as a copywriter. How did you get
Yeah.
them?
Referrals, introductions. So that's the other thing. I hardly ever did any outreach. I hardly ever, frankly, looked for clients. Um, One thing led to another, and also I made sure I built really tight relationships with my clients. And then because they were big companies, they often had multiple internal departments. So I would start working with one person in one department, but then, and you gotta time this. You can't do it too quickly. Then get to know some of the other people in the other departments, and before you know it, you've kind of got 3 or 4 clients in a big organization, and
Wow.
so yeah, right. So and people overlook this, like, and because we're in the same location, we're in the same city. So that's the other thing. I'm in Toronto. My clients were in Toronto. Um, I would have face-to-face meetings. I would go and meet with them, and I was always convinced, and I'm still convinced, that having face-to-face meetings or phone calls
Hmm.
is much better for building tighter relationships. I know these days, we've got all kinds of online tools and it's easy, and we can communicate the way you and I are communicating now. And
Hmm.
that's better than just sending each other text messages, right?
Yeah.
Because there's just more there. There's just more to build something around. Um, so often when there was a new project, I would go there to get briefed face to face. We would have a meeting.
Hmm.
It was worth it because then I could say hello to everybody else too. I'd go there for a meeting and say hi, whatever. And next thing you know, we're having a coffee together. And then somebody say, hey, do you have any time? I got another project here. And I'd go there for one project and come home with 2, right?
Wow.
And
Love it.
that's to me, those personal connections were everything. And then when people left their jobs, sometimes they would, take another job somewhere else. Very often they would take me with them. So, I mean, I got into one of Canada's big 5 banks that way, right?
Wow, that's exciting.
Normally, there's a whole procedure to qualify as a vendor and et cetera, right? But if you get somebody in a marketing department in a high enough position, a high enough level, they can bring in their own vendors. It happens all the time. I work with this person. I like working with them. They're very good at, and here's some of the stuff we did together. And I'll say they bring you in through the side door. Everybody else is banging on the front door trying to get in, can't figure out why they can't get in. Meanwhile, through an introduction, you just walk in through the side door. And this happened to me many times when I was freelancing and in both of my agencies. Um, I had I transitioned many of my clients from my first agency to my second agency. So when the IT company bought our first agency, I mean, frankly, they didn't really know what to do with many of our clients. And when me and my partners were free to do whatever we wanted, which happens after about 6 months, we just started another agency, and then frankly they weren't dealing with our clients anyway, so we just went back to them and said, hey, here we are, same guys, different name, and we just kept working.
Wow.
And so we'd start our second company with significant corporate clients. That's kind of what I did for years. And I was thinking about this earlier. I had 5 or 6 clients who moved around to multiple companies and took me along, and often took me along 2 or 3 times. In fact, next week I'm having a lunch. I haven't had lunch with this gentleman for years, but he was a client. Um, we just connected on LinkedIn. So we're going to have lunch together. So he was a client at 4 different organizations as he moved.
Wow.
So
Great person to
he
reconnect with.
so he yeah, I don't want to do any I don't want to do any more work with him. I just want to have lunch with him, you know. Um, because we had this relationship. It sort of peters out, when I basically retired and left the business that way. But I still stay in touch. I mean, that's why, things like LinkedIn and Twitter and everything else are great for that. So, we're both in the same city, so why not have lunch?
I love that. So I guess you've kind of indirectly said what your favorite client acquisition strategy is, and I know because I've been talking to you for a while now. But for everybody tuning in here today, why don't you share your favorite client acquisition strategy a little more explicitly, even though you've just been touching on it?
It's just relationship based, right? It's
Mhm.
it's just to form. I call these people my business friends. Okay, so it is a very personal and friendly kind of relationship. The only thing that's different between a personal friend, say, and a business friend. So we would have had coffees together. We would have probably had lunches together. We might have had the occasional dinner together, probably at an awards banquet or something, if we were both
Mhm.
going, like that. Other than that, probably not. Um, we would never have been in each other's homes. We're not friends like that. Like if we were personal friends, we might go to dinner at each other's homes, but we didn't business friends. But some of them, if I was going there to a meeting, on my way to the meeting, I would grab coffee for both of us, bring coffee. It's
Mhm.
just the stuff you would do with a friend, right? Or if we went out for a coffee, I'd just say, "What are you having? I'll get it." It's just comes naturally to me. It's no big deal. But it's a different level. I find some people, and I guess it's a personality thing.
Mhm.
People put up borders and they want to keep it, just business, and I'll do this job for you and you pay me, and that's the deal. Okay, I get it. And some people are not comfortable doing what I just described. I get that too.
But that was your growth hack that helped you,
Yeah,
build a successful agency that you sold, and then, in turn, build
yeah,
another successful agency that you retired out of. And, you mentioned that you're bought out by your partner. So certainly it's a
yeah,
strategy that works for you. Everyone has to pick what works for you. But it sounds like if you didn't have to go and pound the pavement and do a lot of cold outreach
yeah.
and things like that, it
No,
was very effective for you to,
yeah,
go the extra mile, build these relationships. One thing you touched on, like you wouldn't go to their house or anything like that. So I get that some people are all business, but sounds like you still had some lines you wouldn't draw on the personal end of it. Why is it that you wouldn't, like, I guess, you still kept a little bit of a barrier to be a little bit
yeah.
professional.
But so did they, right? I mean,
Okay.
that's just the way
Yeah.
it is. I mean, we would, you know, I have again, I've had lunches and we've gone to concerts together with a previous client who's also likes music, and many times we like the same kind of thing. And so we make sure we each get tickets and we go to the show. But that's after I retired. So I still keep these relationships because I don't know, we like seeing each other. We're just, we're friends at that level, right? And it just works, I guess, for both of us. The other thing I want to say too, and what really works well as an acquisition strategy is to get on preferred vendors lists,
Mhm.
right? And so big corporations, and now increasingly even medium-sized corporations have preferred vendor lists. And the other category of organization are governments. So we were on the preferred vendors list for the provincial government. So
Okay.
think about it for a minute. Provincial government has, I don't know, 27, 28 different ministries, each ministry in charge of, tourism, et cetera, whatever they're in charge of. But they all have projects, each of them. So you've got the potential of 28 clients right there. But
Wow.
you have to get on the list, right?
Hmm.
And then when they look for a vendor to do a project, they access their database, and when you submit for an RFP, it's a long form you have to fill out, right? It's to get it on the vendors list. It's basically like an RFP
Hmm.
thing, and it's a lot of detail, and so I know, again, a lot of freelancers and small agency owners, they don't want to do that. Too much work, and I've heard from them online. No, forget it. I can't be bothered. It's just way too much work. Okay, have it your way. But if you're not
Yep.
on that list, or maybe you don't want that kind of a client, I understand that too, right? I always did. I always wanted what I called professional clients. I didn't want small clients, frankly. Nothing against
Mhm.
them other than they tend to be, and not to disparage them, but they tend to be amateur clients because they've got a whole business to run. Being a client for their marketing efforts is just one of probably a dozen hats they have to wear, right? And I
Yeah.
completely understand that. But I wanted a client who only has to wear one hat, and that's the marketing communications hat, right? And so when we talk, that's all they're worried about. And also, it's what I call professional money. It's a budget, a corporate budget they've been given to spend, as opposed to personal money that a small company owner is trying to save, is trying to get things as cost efficiently as possible. Not to say that the big companies, throw money around, but they have money to spend. Like they have a budget. They might, department might have a $500,000 budget. They figure out how they want to spend it at the beginning of the year. They start planning and laying out all their projects and trying to figure out how they're going to get everything done for the budget they have, and then they find people to do it, right? So it's not their personal money. I mean, they want to get good value, and I'm sure they're evaluated internally on that basis, but there's still money there.
Well, and it sounds like you're saying that these are actually easier clients to deal with because they're more focused, they see the
Yeah,
value,
yeah,
and you don't really need to justify the things that you're working on as much. And as you said, with those government accounts and people not wanting to do the RFP process, one, you're leaving those 28 clients on the table. Two, based on like, because I don't know if we're in a recession right now, like likely, but it's like governments or say a nonprofit, like places that have these funding in the budgets, they're still spending money at least no matter what's going on, right? Whereas
yeah,
other
yeah,
industries and sectors might be a little more affected. So that's certainly a
yeah,
consideration is you want to be places where people are still investing, right?
yeah, yeah. Yeah, exactly. The other thing I found, in government and those kinds of companies, a lot of the stuff that we're doing has a public good, has a benefit. Not to say that all government programs are beneficial, but
Mhm.
uh, many of them are. And the kind of work we did, I found gratifying. I enjoyed doing it. I think some people have the wrong impression of what it means to do government communications and marketing work. Uh, a lot of it was a lot of fun, frankly.
Oh,
Uh,
awesome.
I, I enjoyed it, and good clients to work with.
Mhm. Well, and there's no shortage of people that are complaining on the internet right now about like red flag this or, whatever
Yeah,
that. What are some green flags for you that says a client looks like they're going to be good to do business with?
that they're organized, that
Mhm.
they come to you with written briefs, that they know how to write a brief for a project. They give you everything you need, which often would include research. So they know how to start a project. So when they come to a project, they're prepared, right? They have everything. It's written down. It's organized. Sometimes I get binders of stuff, or I get URLs. Okay, go to this website, go to that website, get this, get that. That's fine, right? They have a budget. They know how much they have to spend, right? So we need to accomplish this. We have a budget of this, right? Now, can they say to me, can you come back with a proposal, with an estimate? Tell me how you're going to do this project, how you break it down, what it's going to cost. And then they would also have a reasonable expectation of timelines. So they know how long things take. um, they also understand processes. So they understand, for example, if they give me a project to do, I'm probably going to come back to them with a first draft, right? And so I want a deadline. When's the first draft due, so that we can review that just to make sure everything is on track. And then, then there's going to be further iterations. I'm also going to understand their internal approval processes. So sometimes on big companies, there are multiple levels in the company or the organization. Okay. And the approval needs to go through these levels. And the thing that freelancers and small agency owners need to understand is that you'll never get all of those 5 levels in the room at the same time. It doesn't work that way, right? The way it works is you're going to deal with the person who's your client. Once you and the client have it, sorted out that you're both happy with, then it goes up a level inside the organization. That person has their input. It comes back to include their input. Then it goes up to the 3rd level. You know what I mean? Everybody only wants to see it when the person below them has seen it and approved it. So, pretend it's the annual report. The CEO is not going to look at the annual report until everybody below has had their input and has approved it, and they think it's perfect for him, her, to review, right? That's the only time the CEO is going to want to actually see the final copy. They're not going to get involved in all the preliminary meetings, but yet they still have an input, and at the last stage, there could be changes. So when you're working on a project, you have to understand what the timelines are, and you also have to accommodate for the possible rounds of revisions. You want to make sure you get paid, that you're not doing endless revisions. And see, we never looked at it as scope creep. It wasn't scope creep. It was well within the scope. We accounted for, there's going to be 5 rounds of revisions here. Everybody knew that. This is not a surprise.
Estimate it properly, right?
All right, estimate it properly and fully. And the client will come to us. Sometimes the client would say, when you give me an estimate, include 5 rounds of revisions. Okay, not a problem, right? So they understand their job. So when you're saying about green flags, they understand what their environment is, how they work, how the processes work, and they know how to get a job done from beginning to end.
You have so much expertise you're sharing here, like from the sales aspect and, door knocking when you're visiting an existing account and how to navigate the project, like lots of great experience selling into larger organizations and valuable insights here. You also wrote a book sharing more of your secrets and expertise. You want to share it here with everybody?
Sure. Here, I'll show you. Hang on. I got it. Handy. Here.
Yeah. How to start a successful creative agency. I've read it. There's lots of great insights in here directly from Andy. And I mean, it's one thing to take business advice on social media from people. But like Andy's like walk the walk. Like he's sold companies. He has clients that still want to hang out with him, even though he hasn't worked with them for years. So certainly a book worth checking out that I highly recommend. Where do people find you if they want to connect with you online?
I'm on Twitter. Strote Book, so STROTEBOOK. I'm on LinkedIn, Andy Strote. And any of those will get you links to, I have a website for the book, but if you go on Twitter or on LinkedIn, you'll find that. You can find the link to the website. Website is creativeagencybook.com. And there's an extensive blog there with, I don't know, 110 or so posts on the blog. Each one of them I've tried to make useful, that there are takeaways that people can implement in their business if they like. And I'm happy to chat online if people want to chat. I chat with people all the time.
Yeah, thank you so much. I appreciate you taking some time to share some of your experiences and insights here today, Andy.
Thank you very much. Thank you for asking me. It's a pleasure.
Thank you.